Hi, and welcome to Gamers Explain, Krolokian lore, or short tips and tricks to using Gamers Plain. In today's episode, I'm going to briefly show you how to create a game. So this is for new game masters or people who are looking to try their hand at game mastering on Gamers Plain. And it's not difficult, but let's walk through the steps. So assuming you've got an idea for a game, let's walk through how you might create one. So we start by going to the Games tab on the top navigation bar. Go to All Games, and you can see that you have the option to join a game, and later towards the bottom, create a new game. So let's create one. Now at this point, you want a good idea of what a game will be. So let's populate one. I'm going to create a game of Savage Rifts Atlantis Rising. This is a Kickstarter I backed that I just got delivery on just yesterday. So I'm going to create a system. Now the system is how it's going to be displayed to new users. That's basically all it really has, is that when you go and look for games, let's try that. If we go look for games, we see the games, we can join a game, and when it's sorted here, it's all by systems. So you could look for Savage Worlds games, filter, and then you see these. So these are all games that have been flagged as Savage Worlds in the system. So in the new game system, Savage Worlds, allowed character sheets. Now you can have multiple ones of these, and you have to have one. And by selecting one, you don't automatically get added. So I've clicked Savage Worlds, but I have to add it by clicking the plus button. So now it shows that I have a Savage Worlds. I could add another sheet too. For example, often people will use a custom sheet as a GM PC as a place to just have an avatar that isn't your stock one. I'm just going to leave that for now. Post frequency 1 times per day. That seems about usual. Number of players, I'm thinking 5. 1 characters per player. Okay, so that's pretty good. Sometimes you might allow 2. For example, if a player has a minion, like in D&D, you might have a druid or a hunter might have a pet. And so you could actually allow them to have a separate character sheet for that pet. Or maybe they just playing like 9 characters because they're like really good at stuff like that. So now a description, character generation info. So here's some neat tricks. I'm going to walk you through that. All right, so for a description, let's put that in there. I've already typed this out, so I'm just pasting it in. So we've got basically a description. So I can make this a little bit bigger, the actual pitch itself, using the size tag. You don't have to do this, but so I've got this little bit, then I've got some information about Savage Rifts, and then we've got a little backdrop for people that aren't familiar with the setting. So character generation info, again, we can use a little bit of copying and pasting technology. So here I've got my standard Savage Rifts character creation with additional options from Atlantis Rising. Spelling error there. Okay, so there we go. We've got some character generation info. Now, the next little part is really cool. I don't know that we need to do anything here. I'm going to put a couple of curly brackets. I don't think that even really matters. For some games, you can put special rules in for dice. I don't know that that really makes a lot of sense for Savage Rules or Savage Worlds. So the special rules might be like make the highest number on a dice a different color or sort all of the dice, that sort of thing. But in Savage Worlds, it's just not really that issue. So one last thing we can do, and I'm going to free type this and get it wrong. More of a pop to the game sheet. So I'm going to go image equals and then a URL tab or URL address to an image on the internet, and then close the BB code for image. And there we go. So now when I create it or save it, you see this. So I got this giant cool picture, Atlanta's riding. I've got this extra little bit on the on the pitch, some background information, open for game applications. I'm going to close that. Now, if I close it, that means people can't just invite themselves. They can't just join a game by clicking the button. They have to be invited. So I'm going to curate the people who join the game. So I'm going to close it for here. When I have selected my players, I can invite them. So I can invite a player here by typing somebody's user's name and then hit invite. The game is private, public. I'm not really sure. I'll leave it private for now. And so there you go. So if I want to edit any of these details, I can just click edit up at the top bar. You can see all of this looks like it appeared before. I could change it to 5 times per week or something like that. But let's leave this is, I think, pretty good. I think this is what I'm looking for. Maybe I will add that this is Suede Savage Worlds Adventure Edition, which is the latest edition of Savage Worlds, just to be that a little bit clearer. All right, so we've created a game. Now how do we find players? Well, that's a good part. That's a good question. So what we want to do in these games is recruit players. Unless you've handpicked who's going to play in advance, which happens, you can go to Games Tavern and let's create a new thread. And we want to say, what do we want to say? Well, let's say recruitment for Savage Riffs. Again, I'll repeat Suede, Atlantis Rising. Okay, well, we can't do a whole bunch of that. Just limiting to how long. So recruitment for Savage Worlds, Savage Rifts, Atlantis Rising. Okay, so now we need to put something in the actual recruitment. So again, I'm going to copy and paste. And here we go. So this is my pitch. So I'm going to post. All right, well, it's live. Okay, so here's what I've done. So I've put the same picture, just gives a little bit of pop. We've got the pitch. A Legion team is stranded in Atlantis after a terrible shipwreck. As they attempt to survive the harsh realities of life on this lost continent, they become embroiled in a slave revolt. To survive, the Tomorrow Legionnaires need to use cunning as much as combat prowess, if survival is even possible in the face of such an oppressive interdimensional empire. Well, that's pretty epic, isn't it? And that's all about Savage Rifts. It's just all epic, over the top craziness, and that's why I love it. So I've got a little bit more background here. I've got the backdrop, which is that it's a couple hundred years in the future, magic, interdimensional rifts, game system and rules. This will use Suede. Character restrictions, I've talked, this is repeated in my game details. So we've got that. Oh, and I had another picture here just to give it a little more, excitement. Look at all these crazy people. And then game duration post frequency. Looking for a relatively high paced game. I said the game will likely last a year. That's entirely a guess. I have no idea. Specialized software, player experience. I want a few people who know Savage Worlds, but there will be open places for people entirely new. How to apply, I'll select, I've indicated how I'm going to choose that. It's not first come, first serve, which is how some people do choose games. Marginalized groups, definitely open to anybody and everybody. And, but just having this clear is often welcoming to people who sometimes feel that they're going to be excluded. Adult content, controversial themes. I thought about this. There's going to be a lot of violence. I mean, it is a combat-based role-playing game, and there is slavery, and fairly harsh slavery too. And so the players are on the opposing side of slavery rather than profiting from it. So it's not super controversial. I mean, opposing slavery is. So I left one thing in my notes here, and I put it in blue, linked to recruitment details and gamers. Okay, so I am going to do two things. First, I'm going to copy this address. I'm going to copy link. I'm going to go back to my other page, and I'm going to edit this. And I will say applications funneled recruitment thread. I'm going to make this a URL equals open quotation mark, paste that address I just close square bracket, end of URL. Okay, so hopefully that works. Or maybe it doesn't work. I'll have to check that. I'm not sure what all works in that text box. Now I'm going to go back into here. So I'm copying the address of the actual game. I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to put a link here to the actual game, just because that is handy to kind of reference back and forth. So I'm going to put that there. Maybe this is make it a little bit bigger too. And don't know if this will work, but let's try it. All right, so here's my recruitment pitch, game details. All right. So there we go. There's the game. It's been set up. Here is a link to the actual recruitment pitch. So I want these linked back and forth, right? I want the game details to point to the recruitment thread. I want the recruitment thread to link back to the game details. And so the people, when they enter, they know that, hey, how do I do this? how do I join this Gonzo style game? So we will, yeah, so this isn't working just exactly right. But the idea is at least somebody knows where they can find it, and they can copy and paste that. So maybe I'll just get rid of the URL so it doesn't look like a link. And I'll just pretty this up a little bit. There we go. So now this game is live. I've got a recruitment thread. I've got it linked to the game details and back and forth. And there we go. Look at that. Nobody's applied yet. Oh, I must have done something wrong. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so this has been creating a game. And if you want to know about this sort of recruitment thread details that I've used, where that came from, my first guest on Gamers Explain was Len Pelletier, and he made this well, he made something. How to write a recruitment thread. Here it is. So essentially, I just copied this and I just changed the text. And so I've replaced the pictures with my own pictures. And there you go. Look at that. Just great. So he's given some examples of guides and things that the explanation of why we've created, or as a community, we've created this sort of best practices idea, this template, so people know what they're looking for. Things look the same each time, and you don't have to guess. Right, so the next part then is we've created the game skeleton, we've created the framework, the game details, we've created a recruitment post, and at some point we'll actually want to play. So how do you do that? How do you create the forums that the games actually reside in? Well, on this game details page, if you go to the bottom, you'll see this forum button. So if you click that, it actually takes you to the game forums that have been set up. So there's no threads been set up, and so let's do a character creation and out of character chat, and say character details. Character options will go here. Now we can, there's many different ways you can create and set up the forums. So that whole thing is really just personal preference. For example, I might have, I like to say gameplay in square brackets and say chapter 1, inciting incident to be determined. So I might have, when this all is up and running, you might have the gameplay chapter. Maybe we've got a resources. So I'm just filling these in blankly just for the sake of this video. So we've got here this gameplay, resources, character creation. That's really all you need, right? This is in the resources. I could put maps. I could put a summary of some of the rules of Savage Worlds, things that need to be looked up periodically, like a fear table or how gritty damage works or something like that. And character creation, that's basically where we're going to create characters, hopefully round robin kind of style. And not round robin, but collaboratively so that we don't end up with, 5 glitter boys. Because, well, that would be fun. Maybe we should just. um, some people do like to have unique roles within the group rather than everybody doing the same thing. And that obviously diversity is a strength in many role-playing games. So there you go. So we've created the game, we've created some threads, and we are ready to go. We are ready to start processing the setting up the game. Now, I'm not ready at this point. I've created the game. I still have some reading to do. I've read a little bit of the sample adventure, some of the world background. I've run Savage Rifts before, so I'm fairly comfortable there. But at this stage, probably have got a week in order to create characters, and so I've got some time to really hammer down what the game is going to look like. If you're creating your first game, maybe it's better to have that done in advance. And that's certainly a best practice for everybody, is know what you're doing before you try and do it. That is not my motto. My motto is jump, jump into the lake before you know how to swim. But there you go. Thank you for joining me, Crawlock, on Gamers Explain, Crawlockian Lore.